All right, so from here, you should have that font added into your program and you should know how to access the pipeline. What we're going to do now is we're going to talk about the objects that are needed to actually display that font onto the screen. So this is very, very similar to how we put images onto our screen and move those around. Sprite fonts can really do the same. So we can add those fonts in. So just like before, where a texture 2D object was needed to actually load a picture in, a sprite font is needed to actually load a font in. So we're going to create something called a sprite font object that is declared globally at the top of our program. And then it's initialized very, very similarly to a texture 2D object. So you'll see your name equals this program dot the content folder, and then we're going to load it in. This time we're loading in a sprite font object, not a texture 2D object, and then we'll just put our file name here at the very, very end. Now, this initialization, because we're loading something in, is taking place in the load content method. So if you jump back into our program, if you click on game1.cs, if you go globally here at the very, very top, we're going to create a sprite font object. Now you can name this whatever you want. I tend to name it the name of the font that I'm actually using. And then from here, I need to initialize it in the load content area because I'm going to load content into it. So here I named it Arial, and I'm accessing this program, the content folder, and I'm going to load something in. I'm going to load in a sprite font object, and it's going to have the name that matches off here on the side. So I can see Arial there. So I'm going to load in Arial. So I've at least got that sprite font object in there to load in my font. Now, the second piece of this is we need to tell that font where to go. So to actually display this font on the screen, we need something called a vector2 object. Vector2 stands for a vector in 2 dimensions. And for those of you that have taken higher level math, you know a vector provides a location where it's going to be. So this vector is basically directing the font where to start. So we're basically giving it the coordinates of its upper left-hand corner. Now this declaration, just like before, happens at the top of our program, but the initialize happens inside of the initialize method, because just like when we had the rectangle with our image, the vector is telling our font where to go. So really, we're going to use our vector name, set it equal to a new vector2 object, and this time we're going to give it an X and a Y location. So when we give it a location, we're telling our program where to place the upper left-hand corner of our text. It doesn't have a width or a height because that will depend on how much we want to write on the screen, but we're giving it a location by using a vector2 object. So if I go in here, I'm going to create this at the very, very top. I have a vector2 object. Now you can name this whatever you want. I tend to either name it the name of my font if I only have one thing being written in that font, or I'll maybe call it main message or something like score, whatever I'm displaying on the screen. So I have a vector2 object. I'm going to call this one score so it can display my current score. I then am going to initialize it here in the initialize method because I don't need to load anything into it. I just need to give it an initial value. So my score is going to be equal to a new vector2 object, and I'm going to give it a location of, let's say, 50 pixels to the left, and we'll do 40 pixels down. So that is the location on the monogame window screen. So now I've got that all finalized and ready to go. It's going to have a font that's loaded in, and it's going to display in a location on the screen. Now from here, the last piece is I need to actually draw this to the screen. And this is very similar to drawing a picture on the screen. You have spritebatch.begin, spritebatch.end, just like you did before. But now the only difference is you're going to use spritebatch.drawString because we want to actually draw a string of characters onto the screen. So it'll have 4 parameters that go in. You'll have your sprite font name, which in this case is Arial, our font that we want to draw in. Then from here, we have what we want to say inside of quotations. That's our string to be drawn on the screen. The vector2 tells it where to be drawn, and then we can pick any color to draw it in. Now notice mine did span 2 lines. That may happen. You may have to bump it down so you can see it on your screen. That's okay. Just remember that you don't put that semicolon until the end of the entire statement. So from here, what I'd like you to do is go back inside. You're going to go all the way down to the draw method. This is where we're going to add it to the screen. So we're going to do sprite batch dot begin, so we know we're going to draw to the screen. Sprite batch dot end, because we're also going to be ending that to draw to the screen. Then we're going to do sprite batch dot draw string, not just draw, but draw string, because we are drawing something to the screen. And remember, this takes in 4 parameters. If you highlight here, it'll show you those 4 parameters you need. You need a sprite font, some text, a position, and a color. So from here, I'm going to put my font that I'm using, which is Arial. I'm going to put in here and say my score is colon space. Remember, it's going to be exactly what we type in here. Now I could add my score in later on if I wanted to, but I'll just say my score is, that's what's going to appear typed on my screen. I'm going to use the location from the vector called score, and then I'm going to put it in color dot red. So this is my font, this is what I'm typing on the screen, this is my vector location, and this is my color. So now if I press start, you'll see that it goes to location 50, 40 and writes an Arial font in the specifications I gave it in that document earlier, and it writes what I had written in quotations to the screen. So at this point, you should be able to add your own fonts and text to the screen. If you go and look at the assignment, I will be having you create multiple fonts and writing multiple different messages on the screen just to ensure that you can personalize your own fonts that as you see fit, put them in different colors, write different things on the screen in different locations. So go complete that assignment, and then I can help you as you go, or you can have me check it off once you're completed.